All right, we are live. Welcome everybody to the Gunner Technology Livestream, a weekly tech talk for non-techies and techies alike. I'm your host, Gary Merkins. With me again, President and CEO of Gunner Technology, Cody Swan. Cody, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing just fine. I'm checking out. I'm refreshing my memory on what the question today was, so I'm doing no prep.
Maybe bump your mic audio up a little bit. It's a little soft, a little scratchy. Just give it a little boost.
Let's see what we got here.
Little boost mobile. While you're doing that, I can run through our winner of the Country Shore giveaway. Country Shore is a lifestyle brand for anyone who loves the outdoors. Check them out at countryshoreoutfitters.com. We had Dan R. from Columbia, South Carolina. So Dan R., you got a Country Shore hat coming your way, along with copies of our ebooks. We have an ebook about the history of JavaScript and an ebook about the technology industry. So both of those are heading your way. And I'm washed out as all get out right now. It's super bright out. So excuse the amazing glow on my face right now, but maybe I can close this thing. Yeah, that's way better. So Cody, question of the week from last week was?
The question of the week from last week was, actually, I was trying to bring up to refresh my memory here.
And while you're bringing that up, everyone sign up for the Country Shore giveaway on our Facebook page and check in weekly to see if you won yourself a glorious Country Shore hat.
Is the mic better now, by the way? Sound better?
No, not at all. But let's go. Let's roll with it. I mean, we can hear you. It's just, it sounds, it's a little scratchy.
A little scratchy. That's not cool. I think I just.
You have a fan on? You have a fan on?
Wait a minute.
Oh.
Is that better? Better?
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
Okay. Definitely. I think I was turning it down instead of up. So, question of the week, back on that. So the question of the week this week is, I just lost it. I just had it. And there it is. It is. This is another doozy. We were off yesterday, so I totally lost my place. But it is. Are you? Oh my gosh, where'd it go? I'm on fire here. I was on the wrong tab. There we go. The question of the week is, well,
wait for it, folks. It's gonna blow your mind.
This is gonna be worth it. Since we're talking about working with businesses today, I think so. It has something to do with that. It has something to do with our show today, or my perceived idea of what the show would be today. Come on, internet, don't fail me now. Okay. I appreciate the software I use at work. Agree or disagree?
That's such a tough one.
And then last week's was that, have you ever been satisfied with government software, which was a resounding no, checking in at 98% no.
Yeah, that's even too low, I think.
So someone cheated the system. Someone answered untruthfully there.
So remind everyone, the question next week is:
I appreciate the work. I appreciate the software I use at work. Agree or disagree?
So make sure to hop on our Facebook page and answer that question for next week's question of the week. But as Cody alluded to, this week the question is: what is it like working with the private sector? So I know last week we talked about working with the public sector, but this week we're talking about the private sector, which is a whole different can of worms.
Yeah, and definitely a whole bunch of different challenges. I mean, it's weird that they have similar goals in a lot of respects, but they're so different in how they go about achieving those goals. And so with the private sector, there's a lot more interpersonal communication, I guess you'd say, where with the public sector, it's very informal or very impersonal, and you're responding to an RFP or an RFQ without ever being able to talk to someone. You don't really have a chance to have a back and forth.
It's as you'd imagine working with the government would be. It's a lot of faceless names and a lot of anonymous communications with people that you never actually meet.
That's right. And so the private sector, there's a lot more of like a give and take, where you can meet with the stakeholder, you can ask the stakeholder questions, you can even offer things like, hey, like just give us like a week, give us 2 weeks at no cost to yourself, just to see how the relationship would go. And if you like it, then let's formalize it with a larger contract. There's no sort of with the government, there's no sort of latitude like that in creative dealings. You either take their offer or you don't, and you answer their questions the best you can without any sort of feedback available.
So what are the difficulties as far, because I know the sort of the on-ramping process is a great way to, and this is a topic we come back to a lot, is a great way to sort of build relationships. What's the situation there as far as the importance of relationships versus government seems to be the importance of experience?
Right. So yeah, it's like the government's like, we're not going to have a relationship with you anyway. So what is your what is your experience like? Because we're really not going to have a relationship with you. The private sector is more all about that relationship. The experience, having a big checklist of experience isn't necessarily as beneficial when you're working with the private sector as it is about fit. And you have a lot more latitude to figure out if that's a good fit or not. So the criteria is just much different.
And what about freedom as far as what stack you can use, stuff like that? How does that compare government to private sector?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time when you're starting with a business or a company or someone in the private sector, they're a lot more willing to throw out what they have or have not done previously, meaning they're less beholden to it, which is kind of weird. But when in the government, they kind of like, this is what we've done. We need someone who can extend this. We need someone who can integrate with this. Uh, like the option of, hey, why don't you just scrap this and start over is like unheard of. Whereas companies, and again, I think this has to do with the fact that there can be more trust built up front. If you come to them and say, look, you guys are using stuff that is just way outdated and we can try to update you here, but it's going to be better long term if you move to something that's open source, something that's more nimble, something that has a bigger developer community behind it. And yeah, it's going to set you back initially, but it's going to set you up for the future a lot better, which is weird to me because the government's going to be there. Like companies kind of come and go, but the government's going to be there. So you'd think if there's anyone who wanted to be set up for the future, it'd be the government, but the incentive just isn't there for the people operating the projects within the government to future-proof their technology stack. Where in the private sector, there definitely is this incentive to, oh well, we don't want to foot the bill all over for this again. We want to get ahead of our competition. There is that incentive to kind of future-proof the application or the.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's almost the reverse of what you'd expect. But I guess the success metrics are different between public and private sector, where public is sort of looking for something to just be done on budget, and the private sector seems more focused on long-term growth. I think everyone's looking for that home run project that's sort of going to set them up in the Bahamas and buy them that yacht.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with that. While the agencies don't change in the public sector very often, the faces kind of do. Not all agencies this is true of, but even though these aren't elected positions, they're appointed positions, which can change drastically with who is in office or who is the elected official. And so I think there's kind of like a here we go again type thing. Like, let's just get this over with. Like, let's contract with the company that is going to provide kind of it's going to need the least amount of our involvement just to get this done kind of thing.
Well, that's interesting too, because we're talking about the private sector, but we're really talking about the small business side of the private sector. I mean, we have experience working with the big business side too, and it seems closer to government in that respect as far as wanting short-term wins, wanting stuff constantly pushed out there, and not so much worried about the long-term sustainability of it.
Yeah, that's right. When we generally have these conversations about the private sector, we are referring mainly to the small and medium-sized companies within the private sector. And yeah, the larger corporations in the private sector operate much more like the government, where, and again, maybe it's something like we just got so much stuff going on, we just want this taken care of, and almost like this is handed down to them, which in a lot of cases it is. So like even the agency that's putting it out there, they're not 100% sold on it. It's just like, all right, well, whoever whoever was elected, this is a big initiative of theirs.
Right. It's a mandate from someone else, and they're sort of just seeing it through.
Yeah, we kind of have to get this done. So let's just, let's just get this done and move on with it, kind of thing.
That's good. That's the level of enthusiasm you want on a project.
That's right. That's right.
Talk to me. We actually had a question. I meant to bring it up. We had a question on Periscope. What's the percentage of projects that are public versus private for us? I don't know if we want to disclose absolute numbers, but percentages certainly we can talk about. Well, I guess a follow-up question would be, is that usual for companies like ours?
Well, the interesting thing is companies like ours, most of them, there are a couple that are publicly traded, but most of them are private. So good luck actually getting that information. Like you said, most companies aren't willing to give that out. Our percentage for private sector is much higher than it is for public sector, mainly because we've been in the private sector much longer than we've been in the public sector. So I don't know what I think the percentage would differ based on the company and what their focus would be. But ideally to have a healthy mix of both, and again, we throw entrepreneurs, which we talked in there also. If you get a healthy mix in your portfolio, what our general principle is, and I would imagine it's a common sense principle for other companies, is you fill your portfolio with all three, because working with entrepreneurs has a very low initial ROI, meaning you're not going to make a lot of money on your first few contracts with the entrepreneur. Our goal is to form a relationship where we're almost a part of the new entity that is being created. So if that entrepreneur's idea hits big, we share in that big success with the entrepreneur. It's like a home run swing kind of thing. Whereas private sector is more one step down. Again, the initial contracts aren't very big, but you're hoping to make your money off the following contracts, where you've helped the company show return or cut costs, and they're rewarding you with larger contracts because they've seen what you can do, and they're increasing that relationship. The government is the public sector is on the opposite side of that, where the first contract is going to be like the second contract is going to be like the third contract. They're just renewal. So you're not really rewarded. You're not sharing in the successes of the government, so to speak. Like, you're going to get paid the same kind of regardless. Now they can cancel the contract, but you would really have to screw up for them to cancel the contract. So it's kind of like, that's the most straightforward in terms of what you see is what you get. Sometimes it doesn't even help you to try to discount your first contract. Kind of like, you're going to get paid what you're going to get paid, what you're going to get paid. Regardless of if the project is a success from a non-technical standpoint or a failure from a non-technical standpoint.
And I'm no stock expert, but it seems almost like a stock bond kind of thing, where you might buy a stock hoping that it increase 1,000%, but with a bond, you're getting a set percentage back frequently. Yeah, so the government is much more, you're getting exactly this for doing exactly this work. Private sector, sky's the limit. You never know what's going to take off.
Yeah, that's right. And the thing that's good and bad about public sector work is there's a repository for this stuff. It's very easy to go and find the opportunities that are out there for entrepreneurs, and with entrepreneurs and private sector. It's much more about networking, marketing, things like that. Not at all to say that doesn't go on with the public sector work, but there's, each state has a marketplace and there's federal marketplaces, but everything has a location where you can just go and see what people need building. Oftentimes in the private sector, these potential clients don't even know that they need something built, let alone what they need built. And so there's no repository where they go and post what they need done. Usually these opportunities are born out of talking with the people from the private sector, or again, entrepreneurs kind of has an idea, but there's no like central database for entrepreneur ideas that need building. So they're a lot more difficult to find. At the same time, again, it's much more, it's easier to win entrepreneurial jobs and private sector jobs. Like, our win percentage is much, much higher for those types of work than it is for government work, because there's one there's one central repository. Everyone knows where to go to find this stuff. So like before the show, I was in the middle of writing a bid for an opportunity. And at this point, some of these bids, it takes a full day, like 9 hours to do a bid. And so that's a lot of work especially when your percentage is pretty low. Like we probably will not win this bid, and so that's a lot of upfront work to put into something that you're probably not going to win. It's almost like a batting average. Like if you're hitting 300, you're doing really freaking well, but the large majority of the time you're not succeeding. So it's a lot of upfront work to put into it to try to get those jobs when you really, chances are you won't get it.
So it's almost a trade-off between, I guess, ease of identifying opportunities versus ease of acquiring opportunities. And I guess what advice would you give to people as far as private sector work in terms of actually identifying opportunities? Because I know I don't want to give away our marketing strategies, but I guess just how should folks approach that, or what's the best way to go about it?
For us, it's generally we have had companies reach out to us, but it's almost always kind of serendipitous conversation. Like you're talking with someone, and they whenever you meet someone, they ask you what you do, and usually when I say what we do, they kind of look at me with a blank face. So I give them an example, and usually what'll happen be like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. At my work, we had something similar, and we need something like that. And it just kind of, the need is born out of conversation, or again, referral, where again, one of our clients will be talking with someone, and that someone our client will mention that they use us, and the person they're talking to will be like, oh, we need something like that, and then we'll get a call from that person, kind of thing.
Yeah, I was sitting next to a dentist on a plane yesterday, and he was going through a PowerPoint presentation. Quick conversation. What do you do? What technology do you use? If you ever have any issues with technology, here's my card. Make sure to give us a shout. Maybe we can help you out, kind of thing. You have no idea how much that leads to new business. It's unbelievable.
Right. It's weird, and it would be. I know in the past there's been opportunity, or there's been effort put into creating a marketplace for work for the private sector and entrepreneurs. Like what was it? Entrepreneur meet designer, developer meet designer.
Right.
They never really took off, and I think it's because, especially in the private sector, there's really we never convince someone that they need software. Like I've never like been talking to someone and say, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. But they hear what we've done, and they kind of like, the gears start turning, and then they start asking us questions, and it's like, oh yeah, that would be actually kind of easy. Well, what do you think something like that would cost? Well, that's nothing. Like that's an easy one. And it's always then like, oh, well, let's do that. And then you do it, and it's like smoking after that, in a good way. You don't stop, because because like you do it and you're like, oh my gosh, like that was that easy to do in terms of build the technology. And now we've eliminated so much busy work that we used to do. What else can we eliminate? What else can we streamline? What else can we automate? And it becomes like this euphoric high to get rid of busy work that no one wants to do anyway.
Working with Gunner Technology is like a really good nicotine addiction.
That's right. It's like a hacking up a lung.
Let's make sure to put that on the next flyer. Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, it's a totally different ball of wax working in the private sector. I mean, it has, I would say, more perks than working in the public sector, just because of those personal relationships and seeing someone that, because you do build friendships, and you love seeing these people succeed. And we've had so much tremendous success in the private sector. It's just been great to see. It's been great to have an effect on businesses that you actually care about.
Right. And I think we both come from a business background. So there's, unlike a lot of other software development companies where they're very talented, but they're just focused on the technology and what they're building. Like we have a business angle to this too. Like we're businessmen ourselves, and we're creating technology. So we appreciate when we actually see success from the technology, as opposed to when there's just like, okay, I did my part of it kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, there is the benefit in the public sector of you actually are having an effect on the public good. And you like having your software out there that's making people's lives easier. It's just you don't get that immediate feedback from the people you're working with that this is really changing their day-to-day and making stuff so much easier and so much better for them and making them so much happier to come into the office. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that gets us going.
Right. And it was kind of weird because I was actually just talking to someone today. They're in construction, and they were talking about how they were trying to get a permit from the city which I live, and talking about how awful the website was. And it's just it's so weird because the contractor who put together that website for the city does a lot of permitting software for government agencies, right? And so it goes back to our whole thing about like experience. Well, everyone hates what this agency has built in terms of a permitting solution. But because they have built a permitting solution, they're going to keep getting jobs from other agencies just because the agency knows, well, they're going to give us a permitting solution.
Yeah, I guess that's the public-private sector argument is that there's no market of competition where somebody can come along and build something. Somebody could probably come along and build something better in a week, and it would immediately make that other system moot. But you just don't get that competition.
Right, and you can't even, like when we submit a bid, we can't submit a prototype. We can submit a link to a prototype on a piece of paper, but we're fooling ourselves if we think anyone's actually going to go type in to their web browser that URL and check out our prototype that we built just for them. I mean, it's crazy. It's really difficult sometimes. Whereas you do that in the private sector, you're like, hey, look, this isn't usable. You're not going to put this out to your clients, but this is kind of a taste of how we would see this working. And you just send them a demonstration in a URL, a live URL, and they can actually see it, and they start to get excited because they can actually see the vision. Not to mention that you did it in, like you said, a week or less. You know, then the thought process goes from what are we going to build to, oh my gosh, we can build something like this in a week. And then the gears really start turning about what the possibilities are.
I think that's a great place to leave it. That's going to do it for this episode of the Gunner Technology Livestream. Make sure to tune in next week, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and check out the podcast for this episode on iTunes. Make sure to check out our blog at gunnertech.com. We have ebooks out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iBooks, Kobo, and anywhere else that ebooks are sold. Make sure to sign up for the Country Store giveaway on our Facebook page and answer the question of the week, which, remind them once again, Cody, the question of the week, if you still have that tab open.
Oh, yeah, I do have that open, actually. It was, I appreciate the software I use at work. Agree or disagree?
So hop on our Facebook page, answer that question, sign up for the Country Store giveaway, and make sure to catch us next week, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. This has been the Gunner Technology Livestream. I'm Derry. That's Cody. Thanks for tuning in.